Ahoy there, Ome, and welcome back to the Hard Knocks Sorority Podcast, a Shadowrun 4th Edition actual play podcast. Jandron over here and take a listen to episode 31. It is finally time to collect that sweet, sweet new yen and reunite Ice, Rigor Mortis, and Procop. Cecile seems to be in the clear, right? This is it, Chummers, the final act of Season 1. It's been a pleasure sharing it with you. As always, featuring Beth as Grace, aka Nightingale, and Val as Ollie, aka Boxer, Veronica as Cecile, aka College Girl, and Kat as Deandra. It's really whiz that you are joining us, and I hope you enjoy this episode. If you do, please tell your friends and leave us a positive review. We are available on most podcast services, YouTube, iTunes, etc. You can also find a link to our Discord server in the podcast description and on the YouTube channel. We would love to hear from you, and we share a lot of in-game pay data there as well, such as maps, intros, fluff, and character stories. Please do drop us some feedback. Thank you again, Chummers. Don't forget, watch your back, conserve your ammo, always check that cred stick, and never, ever make a deal with a dragon.
Okay, so you guys are heading back into Seattle, and you're getting to the Samovar in Tacoma about the same time that Deandra and Ice and Rigor Mortis are pulling up on the motorcycle. So Rigor Mortis has not met or seen you guys so far, so he's only seen Ice and Deandra. Ice was the one who grabbed him out of the yard and onto the motorcycle, and Deandra drove him off. So he never actually met you guys. So you are arriving in Tacoma at this point, and you see you guys are pulled up in the back of Samovar where you normally pull up. You see Deandra and the motorcycle with Ice, and sitting in the sidecar is the small, somewhat older-looking man that you recognize as Rigor Mortis, the man you freed from captivity at the Warehouse Alliance place. And Grace, are you masking or otherwise changing your appearance?
Coming out to the Samovar? Question mark. So we're there at the Samovar, parked at the Samovar.
Right.
Am I getting that right?
Yes. And basically, this is your introduction to this NPC Rigor Mortis, the guy that you just that you saved the other day.
Although Rigor Mortis might recognize the horse.
I don't think he wouldn't have seen the horse.
The horse actually manifested to get him into play.
Oh, right. Forgot all about that.
Yeah, so I mean he knows there is a horse afoot. So I mean no point in trying to hide it.
Okay, so the van pulls up and Rigor Mortis is standing there, and then I guess as Boxer and Grace gets out, you see him sort of look startled, and he says, "Wait, there really is a horse? I thought somebody was just astrally projecting and sending me a message." I says, "Well, who do you think was astrally projecting? It wasn't me, obviously."
Can I hear that?
Yep.
Grace,
The horse talks too, don't be surprised.
as she's getting out, I'm imagining her tumbling out because she's trying to wave. Tumbling out of the car trying to wave. And when she gets onto all fours, she does it again and actually gives a wave and walks over to the group parked. They're covered by the building, the Samovar, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And as you know...
Hey, you're Rigor Mortis, right?
He looks even more startled, and he says, "Yeah, I did. What? Who? What? Who? How?
He doesn't
who are
explain
you?
as she produces her
What are you?"
notepad, and she flips to her illustration of Rigor Mortis, and she just compares it with the man in front of her.
Yeah, you did a pretty good job.
I could maybe make a job out of that at some point in the future. But she smiles, and it's kind of smile where it's very obvious she doesn't really understand how people smile. It's not natural for her to bare her teeth like that.
He smiles back at you somewhat uncertainly and looks at Ice and Deandra as if for confirmation that, everything's cool. And then he says, well, I've seen it all now. Talking horses.
My name is Nightingale. I am a explorer, scholar, shadowrunner.
To be honest, I expect
another
you to be talking
world.
giraffes in a second.
Giraffes are dangerous extraplanar entities.
Wrong.
No, that is very true. I'll have you know.
Speaking of dangerous extraplanar entities, Grace is out of the corner of her eye observing 3 spirits. She recognized them as the usual guardian spirits, not watcher spirits, but guardian spirits that hang around the samovar that appear in the astral like large black wolves, are approaching the group and sort of not getting very close, but sort of circling the group. And Grace, make a composure test.
Mm. If they smell weakness, they're gonna tear my throat out.
Probably.
No, they're not birds.
3.
Oh yeah. Grace is managing to keep her composure, even though these spirits, while they don't seem overtly threatening, are certainly scary and reminiscent of other creatures that she's read about.
She tries to give them an astral hello, like, "Hi, doggy," but magic. And then she immediately disengages and ignores them.
They circle the group for a little while and then leave again as if on patrol. And then you see a watcher spirit come around, just sort of bouncing around, following in their wake, and gives you a cheery smile as it passes.
Watching, watching, watching!
That's right. It's just sort of a smiley face, a big fuzzy smiley face.
She actually says that out loud.
When you say that, so all
something.
the rest of you guys are standing there and having a conversation, and all of a sudden the horse just says watching, 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 and you feel a whole lot better. The watcher spirit really sort of lifts your spirit after that moment with the wolf spirits, and it bounces away going watching, 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 and you hear it sort of trailing off, watching, 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 watching.
Yeah, I love those things.
And Ice says, so what are we watching?
Oh,
She's talking to the creatures again. Don't mind her.
I think it's more about who is watching.
I am watching. And then she suddenly produces a magnifying glass from one of her breast pockets, and she points it at one of the group, looking at them through it.
Rigor Mortis is taking all this in, and he says, well, it's a pleasure to meet you, Grace, and I am grateful to you for helping me escape.
You're welcome.
And then he looks at he looks at Boxer, and he reaches out his hand and he says, I take it you were part of the team as well?
I am indeed.
Rigor Mortis, pleasure to meet you.
They call me Boxer. A pleasure.
So
At that point, a grid guide pulls up, and Cecile gets out. Cecile, you basically see this tableau in front of you of the team, including Ice and Rigor Mortis, standing around. Looks like they're making introductions.
He walks past them into the samovar.
Wait, before she can get too far away, too far past, Nightingale actually runs up beside her and says, "Hey, I have a gift for you," and then just offers her a pretty rock. It's literally just a normal rock, gray, but it's kind of cool, kinda. Not even slightly, actually.
Cecile looks taken aback and walks faster.
And there's the college girl right on.
Ice calls after you and
shoves
says,
it into her purse and then goes back to the group.
hey, college girl, where are you going?
Into the samovar.
Well, all right. I was thinking maybe we should have a quick chat out here before we go in and talk to Prokop.
He stops momentarily. A chat about what?
About what we're going to say.
She looks like befuddled.
He looks at the rest of the group, says, "She'll get the hang of it sooner or later."
She just continues walking inside. She doesn't have time for this.
This is the back, by the way. The security team is standing by the door, and the camera's watching as you approach.
She didn't appreciate my rock.
I'm sorry, don't worry. We'll help her figure out that she loves rocks with the next one.
I think I'll get her flowers next time.
Cecile, as you approach the door, the security team's standing there, and you sense that one of them is talking on an embedded comm link, and then they say, "One moment, please, miss.
Of course.
You didn't call ahead for an appointment?"
I believe he's expecting us.
He's not on the premises at the moment.
In that case, perhaps it would make more sense if I were to tell you that we have a one rigor mortis here.
Okay. One moment, please.
I think Deander marches up behind Cecile and picks her up and pulls her back to at this point.
Seal does not let this happen.
Fight!
Oh my god.
No, she's just going to resist being picked up, as any normal person would.
All right. So, would you like to make an opposed test?
Sure, what am I rolling?
Do you have... we're not even going to make well, you will roll strength and agility, and if you have unarmed combat, you can add those dice as a bonus.
Whoa, 2! Never mind.
Yes. So, Deandra, describe what happens here.
I think Deander literally just walks up behind Cecile and loops one Deander definitely just walks up next to Cecile and then just crouches down, grabs Cecile in a fireman's carry, and carries her back to the group and sets her back down.
Screams, yells help, and says, "Unhand me."
Unhand me, you fool!
I was imagining in my head her picking Cecile up and then carrying her like a toddler would carry a cat or dog.
Tucked under one arm.
No,
under the two
holding
armpits with her arms hanging out forwards.
Yeah. And the entire animal's body is just hanging.
With a super angry face.
Yeah, the animal is not pleased.
Okay,
Are you
so
going to let go of Cecile?
Deander is definitely trained in picking up people.
That's
yeah,
great, but Cecile is magic, and...
Deander does put Cecile down back at the group.
Okay, so only a couple seconds of holding on to her.
Just long enough for Cecile to start screaming, and then immediately stop.
Like a little baby.
Looks very upset.
both Ice and Rigor Mortis look highly uncomfortable at this point.
Well, so...
As you can see, we have a team of only
is
the utmost
important-
professionals.
Sorry, what?
No,
Officer
never
said
mind.
that there's a team of... You only have a team of utmost... I imagine you were talking to Rigor Mortis as you were making introductions to him.
Yeah.
Very professional. Much wow. Boom.
Much wow.
As Ice mentioned before, you must decide what is important information and what is unimportant.
I don't see what relevance that could have.
Well, do we
Can I
want...
ask how we did it? Is it going to ask why he's here? We aren't going to lie to the man.
He's our
Right.
boss. We're
should
just going to
have a-
tell him what happened.
We should have a consolidated story that cuts out what would easily be known, or what could easily be called chaff, unuseful information.
Well, if he doesn't ask, it doesn't matter.
Well, what if he does ask?
Then we'll just tell him what happened in a consolidated way. Do you not know how a summary works? She looks pissed off and confused.
Nightingale begins to bounce and she says, "Do you mean we're not supposed to give information up freely for no reason?"
I think Deander closes her eyes for a second and her entire face is twitching. And then she just breathes out and opens them. We need to have all of us be able to tell the same story. So, we don't have to be questioned further than is necessary.
Yeah, of course we would give the same recollection of events. We're not lying.
Yeah, I'm a little confused too. Didn't we all see the same thing?
Well, if we all saw the same thing, what color was the wallpaper in the three of our hotel room?
You had wallpaper?
Hotel room?
I would like to
Exactly.
roll edge to guess it correctly.
Okay, do it.
Oh my.
One or two edge dice.
Oh, cool.
Aww.
Thank you.
Did you? Okay, you did roll a dice. You didn't have your penalty on this time. What color did you guess?
Blue. Like a sky blue.
So at that point, Rigor Mortis says, "Look, guys, I think we can. I don't know what the plan is here. You guys broke me out, and now I'm here." He points at his head and says, "Let's not forget, I've still got a Cortex bomb in my head.
We're gonna pull that out of your brain, I think. Eventually.
I would sort of like that to be a priority at this point.
I've
I've been wearing this motorcycle helmet for, going on 24 hours now, in the hope that my head doesn't explode, or if it does, that the helmet will contain it."
I've got some education here, but God knows that I am not the one you want digging around in your head. So you're gonna have to wait for one of Prokop's people, and he has many to help you out this after one.
Or if anyone's in contact with a Ripper Dog, we can fit it.
As you mentioned Prokop Skillful's name, you see Ice sort of in the background making the cutting motion across his neck as if to say, don't say that.
I tell that he hates this man. He just genuinely hates Prokop, or is he afraid of him? What's going on there?
So as the name Prokop Skillful comes up, and as you're perceiving in the astral, you see various flares of emotion through Rigor Mortis's aura. Usually the name, mostly the name elicits quite a bit of anger and distrust, and probably a little bit of fear as well. But certainly Rigor Mortis has no fond feelings for Prokop Skillful.
Why don't you like Prokop? Grace just says out loud, the biggest faux pas ever.
And he looks at you and he says, "Finally somebody's making sense here. He betrayed us. He's the man who set the whole mission up that got me in jail and Ice burned and the rest of our team dead. I haven't heard anybody prove to me yet that it wasn't intentional."
Well, what he told us is that it fell apart and he couldn't do anything for you at the time. That's what he told us. And he did pay money to get you out of prison.
Yeah, but to what end?
Well,
I don't trust him. I'm surprised that Ice trusts him.
Can Cecile eye the door and see if the guards look like they're going to let her in yet?
They look like they're watching you, and still one of them seems to be conferring on his comlink. There is does Cecile perceive astrally at all? No.
Well, she can. She just isn't right now.
Grace, on the other hand, does, and Grace sees that one of the security personnel at the door is magically active and does seem to be perceiving in the astral. Look, this is what happened. Prokop hired us to do a mission, right? To do a run. We were supposed to kidnap this person. It was a setup. When we got there, somebody else had tried to murder them and set us up for their murder. Lone Star came down on us like a ton of bricks. They had already been tipped off. They knew the whole thing was going down. The only person who survived and got out of this in any kind of okay shape was Prokop.
What, was he your fixer?
He was our fixer, yes.
Isn't that just how fixers work? I'm not understanding your compunctions against this man.
well, okay, listen. I think I understand why he has the feelings he has. It makes a lot of sense. If I was in his position, I would probably think that Prokop did something fishy too. But Prokop is going to help you, presumably. And I don't know if there's any strings attached, but you should probably proceed with an open mind. It would benefit you, rigor mortis, because he has a lot of resources, and he's also pretty friendly. He gave me Horchata whenever I asked for it.
I don't care for your grudges. I just helped get you, she gestures to the dwarf, out. I don't care about your cranial bomb. I don't care about any of that. I'm just here to get paid what I'm due.
I care about your cranial bomb.
He's not a dwarf.
Oh, he's just small?
He's just small.
Did you just did like? I'm now imagining like he sensed it that you're looking at him and you're like small.
I misremembered that he was a dwarf.
I care about your cranial.
You're going by the classic Shadowrun trope that the rigger is always a dwarf.
Well, okay, I wouldn't normally be wrong.
But in
like
this case, he's
racism.
not.
Racism.
Sizeism. Ice at this point says, yeah, I felt the same way you did too, rigor mortis, when Prokop first came to me and told me that he'd found you. I had exactly the same sentiment as you, but in the meantime, I've changed my mind. And rigor mortis just sort of puffs and then looks resigned and says, all right, let's get this over with and see what's happening. Whether I end up back in jail or whatever, who knows.
I doubt you'll end up back in jail. At least not in the near future.
The door to the samovar opens up and you see the woman, Nadia, who has greeted you at this door every time you've come here, standing there looking at you.
Ah, good. Cecile goes ahead and walks over.
Deander makes sure her bike is locked, heading to the door, trying to stay at least close enough to Cecile to keep her out of trouble.
Her out of trouble?
Yes.
There is actually I remember right there, a picture here somewhere.
Nadia?
Yeah. So Nadia's standing in the doorway watching you guys talk. And Grace, you see that she is astrally perceiving as well. She's watching you in the astral.
Mm-hmm.
And make an astral perception test.
As in, am I specifically trying to read auras, or am I trying to perceive something happening in my environment?
You're perceiving something happening in your environment.
Yeah, so that would be perception. Where's perception? Ooh.
As you glance over towards Nadia, there's a briefest flicker, a briefest fraction of a second where her warding doesn't seem to be engaged. And instead of a female human, you see something else. And I sent it to you as a direct message. You can choose to share it with the team or not.
Nightingale is suddenly very tense, and she makes eye contact with Nadia, or at least she's like staring quite pointedly at her face.
She's smiling at you.
Nadia doesn't smile.
She's smiling at you in a way that's somewhat disturbing. As if she knows that you saw her, and she's giving you sort of that sardonic smile of, I know that you know that I know that you know.
I don't know if I feel right about this. Huzzah?
Well, Cecile's rapidly approaching.
Nightingale doesn't go to stop her.
Alright, and Cecile's rapidly approaching. Deandra was following her, right?
Yes.
And Ice and Rigor Mortis had followed her as well. So, Box, are you hanging back with Grace?
Yes.
Okay, so are Grace and Boxer still hanging back by the van?
Well, by the motorcycle where everyone had gathered around.
Yep. Okay. As you approach Nadia, he looks at you and smiles and says, "Welcome. Unfortunately, Prokop isn't here at the moment. However, I can offer you refreshments until he returns."
That'll do nicely.
Very well. Follow me. She looks over at Grace and Boxer, and she calls to you. And she's probably calling directly to Grace. Would you like to enter and have some refreshments while we wait?
How visible is Grace's anxiety?
It's very apparent. She's an incredibly social animal. Even if it's not in her face, because it's not metahuman in shape, you can tell the tension in her muscles, the twitching in her ears, how intently
Pulse
she's
raised.
looking.
I would say just make a perception test with let's call it +2 dice.
Are you about to say advantage?
Roll with advantage.
Yes, so Grace's anxiety is quite obvious to you.
Grace. Grace, are you alright?
Grace promptly bonks Boxer in the thigh, like bunts her head against her thigh, and casts Mind Net. Okay. What was the minimum force for this one? 1. Okay. Oh, well, that is so expensive. Actually, never mind. I think she's just going to like look up at her and whisper,
You'd be a DM if you wanted to be very secret.
Very secret moment.
very secret.
Keep your mind net away from me.
Keep your filthy mind net. I didn't want it
Magic.
anyway.
Magic cooties.
Ew, magic. Ugh, I would cover.
I'm immune to magic cooties.
Actually, you know what? Mind Net would probably be a good idea. I'm gonna cast it. The fucking drain be damned. So if it's 0.5, you round up. If it's anything else, you round down.
Think so?
And I take 2 drain for that. There you go. Mind Net established.
Grace slumps a little bit from the drain.
Yeah. Should I just say what she'd say out loud?
You can DM it.
It's up to you. You can DM it or you can just say it out loud. It's up to you.
I like the idea of just DMing it for now.
Nadia calls out again. I assure you he'll be here shortly, and you'll be more comfortable inside. She has a somewhat stilted accent.
All right, GM. While they're DMing, weather check. What does the weather look like?
So it's an unseasonably warm day in Seattle. It's about 14 degrees Celsius. It's not raining, fortunately, and it's not overly wet. It's just, actually for Seattle in the February, it's quite pleasant. Aside from, the acid rain and the acid smog and
Seattle.
the acid in general all over everything, turning everything black. Samovar is quite dark anyways, so even the outside. I mean, it's an old industrial building. The acid rain's been eating away at it for decades, so there's black residue all over everything. And you're in a back alley where the deliveries are made, so it's not a chic part of town. It's Tacoma, so it's you're basically hanging out in an industrial back alley with some sketchy characters. Each of you thinks that the rest of the party is sketchy, except for Grace.
If you were paying a lot of attention to Diandere, you'd definitely see a lot of her credstick starting to act up again.
Is that because
That's just
situation or just dealing with steel?
That's dealing with the steel, the start of the being in the shadow.
Does Diandere not like being in? When you say the shadows, are we talking literal shadows or the figurative shadows of Shadowrun?
The figurative shadows. Diandere doesn't like it, but she's not going to let that stop her.
Well, she's got that in common with Cecile.
It also is just the start of her allergies coming up now that she's lived in Seattle long.
For the record, whatever amount Cecile liked you before, she now fucking hates you.
I feel that's legitimate.
I'd be a bit miffed.
Yeah, that's understandable. But Diandere's had a long night. She thought it would be easier to pick up Cecile, and it was. So she's electrocuted people.
All right, so Nadja calls over to you and says, "I'm sure it will be much comfortabler inside. We have refreshments, and we will be here shortly."
Boxer's looking at Nadia with a certain appraising look.
DM, for my own memory, was it Nadia or Talia that said the weird thing to Cecile?
It was Talia,
Okay, that's what I thought.
the other strange woman that hangs out with Prokop. This one.
Yeah. Just reminding myself.
Nightingale isn't going to be able to make a decision. He's kind of stuck.
What's Boxer doing aside from looking at Nadia?
She's definitely giving Grace some absent pats, comforting.
The other spirits that Grace has observed have returned and are slowly circling.
You call the wolves off? It's not really helping me think.
Nadia makes a quick flick of her hand, and the wolves go loping off.
What?
Wolves that none of the rest of you see, of course.
Naturally. Gosh.
He says, "We mean you no harm."
Do I know anything do I know about shifters?
I don't know. Do you?
Would I? How, well known are they in the Sixth World?
They're not unknown.
How deep in the root?
They're all over niche forums.
So if you're that kind of internet
In the
person.
shadows, there are some well-known shifters.
Every other poster is like, I'm a shifter / my partner is a shifter.
There is actually a bar in Tacoma that's known or thought to be frequented by shifters who work in the shadows.
Now that I think about it, she almost certainly would know about shifters. And it might take her a moment to piece it together. How do shifters present in the astral? I don't know if she would have met one in person, because I know they're fairly rare.
Yeah, they're pretty rare.
With that realization, she...
Says the horse.
They're very rare, says the unique individual in the Sixth World. Well, after a moment, she reasons out that there's a non-nefarious explanation here, and she lets up and relaxes and just says, I think it's alright, actually, over the mind net, and I suppose she reluctantly, looking both ways behind her just to confirm that the wolves have actually gone, start going to the back door, where Nadia has been apparently quite emphatically inviting her in.
Yep. So, you all enter the samovar, and you can see rigor mortis sort of nervously glancing around as Nadia leads you through the sort of airlocked hallway that you've become familiar with, and back to the VIP section and its comfortable seating. And as you are getting seated, she basically asks you all for what type of refreshments you would like.
I'll have some genmaicha, please.
Some what?
Genmaicha.
Sounds awful.
It's a type of tea.
Okay.
It is a brown rice green tea, consisting of a green tea mixed with roasted popped brown rice.
Okay. That does not sound bad, actually. So she takes your orders, and after a few minutes, she sort of disappears off into the background, and after a few minutes, one of the wait staff shows up with your orders and sets them down in front of you. As you're having your refreshments, you see in the background, you see the sort of startup hustle of the staff of the bar and restaurant going about their morning routine, cleaning up, making sure that everything is in order for the start of business. And then, are you guys does anybody have any plans or anything in mind aside from waiting for Prokop?
Neil's going to enjoy the entertainment.
Boxer's getting, one thing, she's getting hard coffee. Real coffee, but hard.
I think Dare would probably end up texting Brown Dog. I know Brown Dog's actually, she probably wouldn't want to rely on, let's see, don't really have any other people in the shadows, and,
Brown Dog.
Yeah, I think I would end up contacting Brown Dog.
You're just texting him?
I'm texting him asking if he knows her. Just in case.
He responds immediately, naturally, since he sees you now as his ticket into the big leagues as a connection to Prokop Skillful, and he says, yeah, I know a couple. He texts back, yeah, I know a couple, and What are you looking for? What specialty are you looking for?
I need a potato taken out of someone's brain.
This time the response isn't as immediate, and then the response is, I'm going to have to check around who's got the best qualifications for that, but I'll be right back to you.
Thank you, Brown Dog. Take your time.
Perceiving astrally at this inside here, as you've noticed before when you entered the samovar, this is a very heavily, magically warded and guarded area. But most of the staff that you see walking around are perfectly mundane, just going about their tasks. You don't even see any watcher spirits watching you at this point. And a little while later, some of you might already be on your second cup of refreshment. Prokop and Talia come striding in from the other side, from where the public entrance is, and they are dressed a little bit differently than you've normally seen them, where you've seen them sort of in a casual evening wear. Prokop is wearing a very formal suit, and Talia is wearing a less streetwear clothes, almost more corporate looking as they approach. And Prokop smiles his usual smile at you guys, and when he sees Rigor Mortis, he sort of lets out what seems like a very happy cheer and runs up to Rigor Mortis as if to hug him, and immediately gets a cup of soy coffee thrown in his face.
Can I try and catch the coffee?
Yeah, you can.
What should I roll there?
Let's see.
I guess I would roll the effective agility and then roll for it. Right?
I think we should make just a surprise test.
Anyway, I'm gonna put on Portuguese blues. Very important. So surprise tests are only for combat. Here, I'm trying to do something that's not necessarily combat.
Well, let's just see if you're surprised. If you aren't surprised, then you will have the opportunity to attempt to stop the coffee. If you are surprised, it means that you did not have a chance to react.
Okay, so how do I determine if I'm surprised or not?
Just roll your initiative. No, you rolled a 4, a 2, a 5, 2, 5, 6, 5. So
I got 4 hits.
You got 4 hits.
Yeah. Any modifiers?
So you got 4 hits. Rigor Mortis got 2 hits. We'll go with your first roll. So you basically, you are not surprised.
So I'm able to just pluck the soy cap out of the air.
So you're using like magic fingers?
Psychokinesis, yeah. What I imagine would happen is that he like goes to toss it, and like it actually starts coming out, and then suddenly like sparkling, glowing in a strange way that their eyes have probably never seen before. They have to take a moment altogether to process what they're seeing. The liquid stops in mid-air. The cup rights itself with the liquid, like almost as though it's exploding upwards, and it falls back down to the cup, and the cup is set down on the table.
And at that point, both Prokop and Rigor Mortis look surprised. Of course, I don't know how everybody else is reacting, but Prokop and Rigor Mortis are surprised, and then Prokop pulls himself together, and Rigor Mortis says, "You son of a bitch, you've got a lot of explaining to do." Prokop says, puts up his hands, and you can see that he realizes, that this is going to be a little bit more complicated than he expected. And, you saw when Rigor Mortis threw actually, I guess everybody can make a perception test.
Perception.
Can you make perception test?
3.
There's perception.
2.
Perception. 4.
Yeah. When Rigor Mortis attempted to throw the coffee at Prokop, there was a visible twitch from Talia, but she managed to restrain herself. And just like you saw some magical discharge around the cup, there was also the slight glow around Talia's hands that I believe Cecile has seen before and Grace has seen before. But nothing happens other than that. And then Prokop is making placating gestures and saying, "Yes, I understand, Rigor Mortis, and I understand your anger, and I'm sorry that it took us this long to find you and rescue you. We should have looked harder. but believe me, there was no ill intent on my part. I did not set you up. Anyways, we can go through, out of character now, we can go through, I don't think we need to go through the whole exposition thing again between Rigor Mortis and Procop. It would be a rehash of things that we've already heard.
No, Paul. I really want to hear you argue with yourself.
I mean, when you put it like that,
When you put it like that, it sounds even less thrilling.
I don't think that's actually what she was trying to say.
There are only so many opportunities you get to inflict suffering on your GM.
okay, when you put it like that, no, I don't want to hear it.
But ultimately, basically, Procop, the story that you guys have already heard, where Procop was hired as a cutout to hire a group of Shadowrunners to be able to take the fall, and that he also took the fall. All of that comes out, and you hear the story again about the internal power struggles in Mitsuhama, and how Mary Luce and Hideo Yoshida were wrangling for power, and ultimately Mary Luce came out on top with the CEO-ship of Yamatetsu, which ultimately became Evo, and all that whole story comes back out. And Rigor Mortis listens, and every now and then he interjects, and after a while he says, all right, well, okay, so you didn't sell us out, and now you've rescued me, and I've spent 18 years in prison. What now? What do we do now? And Procop looks at him and says, well, it's whatever you want. I mean, I can find you a safe place, I can get you a new identity, and you can live your life whatever you want. And Ice says, were you going to say something? Go ahead.
No, you're fine.
Why, was Cecile going to make us say something?
I thought better of it.
They discuss it for a bit, and Ice ultimately makes the offer that Rigor Mortis should accompany him to Nova Scotia. That's ultimately what's decided. Rigor Mortis stands up, and Ice stands up, and Procop Skillful stands up, and then Ice and Rigor Mortis look at you guys and say, Ice says, well, it's been a pleasure and an honor running with you guys.
I kind of point the Deander points to her motorcycle helmet.
Oh shit. You mean that glaring plot hole which the GM totally overlooked?
Yeah, I was about to say, hey, Procop, there is the matter of the cranial bomb currently installed in Rigor Mortis' head.
Yeah, we'll basically cut that little bit out, and we'll go from the story of Procop telling Rigor Mortis what happened to Cecile saying there's the matter of the cranial bomb. And Procop said, well, I mean, we can get that taken care of pretty easily.
I mean, if you don't care for a large section of your brain, I imagine you could take it out fairly easily.
Well, I believe first we'll have to actually find a Decker to hack into it and deactivate it.
That'd be a good idea.
He looks at Cecile, and then he doesn't look at Cecile. He said, well, yes, so I'll take care of that part. So I believe our business here, and he looks at the team and he says, I believe our business is concluded,
Actually,
at least in this matter.
Procop, I would like to discuss some business with you.
Before we get into that, though, would you like to get paid?
Of course.
Yes!
Very
Money!
much.
Rather.
Ah, yes. So, job well done. And how much did I offer you guys again?
I think it was 15,000. Don't quote.
All right, we'll go with 15,000.
I recall that it was the same amount as we got paid for the Van Housen.
So that was quite a bit less.
We got
The Van Housen job. No, it wasn't the Van Housen job. It was the Creeper Stalker guy job.
Well, yeah, but we still got paid by Procop, I believe.
Because I think when you guys took Van Housen, that was really part of the finding rigor mortis thing.
We got paid $750 or 7,500 for killing Van Housen, I think.
That's not what
No.
I have.
No.
Because you didn't, you weren't hired to kill Van Housen.
We were hired to kidnap Van Housen. Totally different.
Kidnap and extract information leading to the recovery of rigor mortis.
We still got paid for it, and we got 2,500, I think. The kid, the creep, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
Oh, he was no kid. That made it
I-
even worse.
Have I just been stealing his payment?
No, I think D&D starts calling everyone kid.
No, I think Ice had given Cecile some portion of his pay.
Yeah, I have double for the Greasy Johnson, but what I have written down for the mission reward from Prokop for the Van Housen whole deal was 15,000 million.
That's what I remember. Something closer to that figure.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think that basically it's all part of the rescuing rigor mortis job.
Indeed, and I recall us saying, deliberating about stuff, and you basically saying that the run on the prison is about the same as Van Housen, so it'll pay similar.
And I think you also were Prokop had also given you you guys had negotiated for a raise in the pay, and Prokop had basically thrown in the equipment that he'd loaned you.
Yes.
All right, so as the discussions wrap up and the decision is made, Ice and rigor mortis reconcile, and Prokop and they reconcile, and they deliberate on what to do with rigor mortis. They come to the conclusion, they come to the decision that rigor mortis is going to go with Ice at least for a while to Nova Scotia to lay low and establish a new identity. The Cortex bomb is going to get taken care of by Prokop, and so at that point, rigor mortis and Ice are going to leave, and that's when Ice basically standing up. He looks at the rest of the team and he says, "It's been a pleasure running with you guys."
You as well, Ice.
And you, Ice.
Send me a
I will-
postcard when you get there.
Will do, and if you ever come out east, let me know, and I can offer you a fresh fish chowder.
Perhaps I'll ask
That'd be
your
good.
advice on catching metacritters.
Yeah, I might go back to that work, as a matter of fact. So if you go back to college and any of your professors are looking for a guide, let me know.
Oh, they always are.
And till then, you know the rules, right? Conserve your ammo, make no deals with dragons, and watch your back.
Apparently, Cecile's already failed at one of those.
Rigor mortis, on the other hand, is a little bit less stilted and formal about goodbyes, and comes around and shakes everybody's hand. He hesitates slightly when he gets to Grace. He holds out his hand and then looks at his hand and at Grace, and okay, it was good knowing you all. Thank you very much. I owe you, and you can call in the favor at any time, as long as it's several years from now. And they depart with Talia, and at that point, Prokop looks at you and says, "Well, that was from everything I've heard and seen, you pulled off that rescue flawlessly. I'm very impressed with your work." So he reaches into his pocket and pulls out a couple of credsticks and hands you each a credstick, and says, "As agreed, 15,000 million each. I'm very grateful. So now comes the real proposition. I brought you all together in the hopes of establishing a new team of runners in Seattle. So I don't know how you guys feel about working with each other and me again, but I hope that you will consider that if I call with work, you will consider it."
I know I will, at least.
We'll see.
I know some of us have some unfinished business. He looks at Deander. I have begun the process of trying to find out what happened to your brother, and as I get more information there, I will be in touch.
Thank you. Although, I did only ask for the resources. You don't have to go all the way just to join my quest.
It's easier for me, or it'll be beneficial for you if the weight of my organization is behind the request, obviously. I think you will probably get results quicker, although it's already proving to be quite difficult. Your brother died several years ago, and the traces of what happened have been expertly cleaned from the Matrix.
I think, although the group hasn't seen this before, D&D definitely goes into the same, like, it's not annoyed, but it's like, I don't want to believe this state that Ice and Rigor Mortis saw earlier, where she gets like several shades lighter green, and kind of begins to be a little annoyed.
What does Grace see in the astral?
I like to imagine like emotions you see in the astral for D&D are somewhat muted. They're not entirely muted, but she blends in a little bit more because of her magical resistance. So I imagine that it goes from like a multitude of like colors, like green and red and orange, which are like, I'm done with this job, excitement stuff, and annoyance at some of the rest of the group, and a bunch of other mixed emotions, to the sole focus, he's not dead, he can't be dead, kind of thing. Like, that stubborn refusal to believe that anything but what she believes is.
Wait, he's dead?
I don't believe so.
Oh, okay. Well, we're gonna find him. Or, you're gonna find him. I don't know if you're gonna be staying with us long term, but you know.
Yes. Well, Prokop, when you have a moment, I'd like to talk to you in private. Cecile kind of gets up and is going to be waiting somewhere else.
I think like the second Cecile moves away, Dare like forcefully stands up and like just turns around and walks out. Like out to the street, to the motorcycle, just all the way out of there. Definitely a flight response.
Alright, I think we'll leave it there tonight.
Oh.
I think we can probably...
Wait, do we get karma?
Yeah, of course you get karma.
How much?
Well, it was a job well done, high risk.
We got 15,000? Question mark?
Mm-hmm.
15,000 new yen.
I can afford MREs.
Unless you would prefer to be paid in corpse script, I'm sure that Prokop can arrange that.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a good trade.
And how
That's
much?
that's almost all the money I spent on my suit back. Yay.
Alright, well, the way it breaks down is you all survived the adventure, right?
Mm-hmm.
You fulfilled most of the objectives.
Yeah,
There was good role-playing.
absolutely.
Pushed the storyline forward.
Definitely.
Character had the right skills at the right time and place. And you all impressed at one point or another with humor or drama. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 karma.
That sounds right.
6 karma?
So we're getting 6 karma?
Seems pretty good, doesn't it?
Delicious.
Time to press buttons about it.
I'll never go hungry.
Boxer
Not with
will.
15,000 new yen.
Boxer only eats MREs. She's hungry. Feed her.
She has been backed up for 50 years.
She has to replace those 10,000 MREs that she had in that safe house that got blown up because Cecile didn't turn off her pan.
My
Look.
MRE.
Look, it's literally one sentence. I had a lot going on.
She needs to save up to replace her fucking intestine because of all those MREs.
Gross.
They
I'll
don't
put some more
agree with
chili,
your
Mac.
body.
I'll put
Oh,
some more
no.
chili, Mac.
No! It's terrible.
All right, guys, I'm going to call it a night.
Yes, I have somewhere to be as well.
Sounds
Good
good.
night.
Good
Night.
night,
Good night.
Paul.
Night.
I really enjoyed this.
Oh, there he goes.
The Topps Company, Inc. has sole ownership of the names, logo, artwork, marks, photographs, sounds, audio, video, and/or any proprietary material used in connection with the game Shadowrun. The Topps Company, Inc. has granted permission to the Hard Knocks Sorority podcast to use such names, logos, artwork, marks, and/or any proprietary materials for promotional and informational purposes on its website, but does not endorse and is not affiliated with the Hard Knocks Sorority podcast in any official capacity whatsoever. The music for the Hard Knocks Sorority podcast was written and performed by Trace Mineral. The Hard Knocks Sorority podcast is licensed under a Creative Commons License 4.0, meaning you are welcome to use the material as long as you give us credit.